Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this lovely Saturday. I am Hafi from Seasonings Magazine, a collaboration between myself and Pam, who runs Singapore Noodles. Seasoning is a magazine that provides an insider's view into Singapore's festival and festive food. So, in every issue, we hope to highlight the beauty and cultural richness of one season in Singapore. And we hope to show that you don't have to belong to a certain racial or religious group to appreciate a festival because we have more in common than we think. So, in this current social climate, it's important for us to have more safe spaces to talk about sensitive issues such as race and religion. So, that is why we are discussing certain topics that we did not manage to include in our first issue. So, we hope that all of us would be respectful and open minded when listening to the perspective of others. So, today we have on the panel our lovely contributors. Panelists can introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Noor. I think you guys might or might have not recognized me on TV. I'm a full-time magic maker, a full-time housefly. I'm a mama bird to two beautiful kids, and a loving wife to my husband, who's also a graphic designer and illustrator. I'm also a food nerd, so most of my posts on Instagram is about food.
Okay, so hi, I'm Hairil. I'm 33. I'm of Javanese descent. I actually graduated from culinary school some years ago, and I've worked in a number of commercial kitchens. And on a personal level, I'm currently trying to document recipes that I grew up with in an attempt to not lose any of them. In my free time, I enjoy immersing myself in things like food literature and food media. And yeah, I guess that's quite a brief introduction about myself.
Hi, I'm Delfina. I'm editor at Time Out Singapore. So I usually write about things to do and restaurants to go and hiking stuff. So yeah, which you can find on my Instagram as well. I am also like not a food nerd. So I wouldn't say like I'm a chef or anything, but like I've always been interested about stories behind food and things like that. So I think like seasonings is like on the right track when it comes to things like that.
Okay, so a quick one. My name is Taahira. I run a small home cooking experience with my mom, where we teach people how to cook Indian Muslim food that you may or may not find in hawker centers and restaurants. And we use it really as a way to talk to people about our lives and maybe things they may not have known about previously. And because my mom is 58 this year and I'm 29, we have, 2 decades of lived experiences that are different. And that's really what this session is about. So yeah.
Hi everybody. Hey, my name is Firdaus. I identify myself as a fourth generation Orang Laut. I kickstarted Orang Laut SG sometime last year. It is a page to talk about my family heritage, where we were from, which is Pulau Semakau, and basically highlighting the different livelihoods that we had, our culture, our beliefs, what made us an Orang Laut. And also I use food as a vehicle to talk about our stories, to share our stories. And I think a big part of it is also featuring my family members, which are my mom, my aunt, and there are little nuggets of information that I can just get while they're cooking over the weekends. Apart from sharing stories, we also have a weekend business, a home-based one, to just share snippets of what we love to eat as an Orang Laut.
Right. So hi, my name's Azfar. So a bit about me. I've always been intrigued, and I've always wanted to discover more regarding Nusantara cuisine, regarding the cultures, the culinary heritage of the Nusantara, or rather the Malay world. All right, so Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, so Thailand, and parts of Southeast Asia. Yeah. So a bit about my background is I did my bachelor's at the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, in Singapore. And I've also worked in restaurants in NYC as well. Now I'm back here. I I haven't been very active in commercial kitchens, but I still work in the restaurant industry. And but here and there, I still try to follow up on my research wherever I can in terms of finding more about Nusantara culinary heritage, and also trying to share as much as possible about my family's culinary heritage. So yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'll quickly share how the day's proceedings will go. So I'm Pamelia. I am the editor for Seasonings, and I'll be your moderator for this session. So we're very excited to hear perspectives on issues that might seem a bit sensitive or not generally talked about in Singaporean society. So after the 5 questions are addressed, we will have a session of Q&A where we'll take some questions from the audience. So we'll start with the first question. So given that there is a large religious component to Hari Raya Puasa, what are some pressures that one might feel or face while trying to adhere to the expected mold of being Muslim?
Right. So growing up in a Malay Muslim family, and also identifying myself as a queer individual or someone who doesn't conform to that Malay Muslim boy stereotype, I feel. I mean, it's not only just for Hari Raya, but also for family events, where I always feel the need that I have to act a different way in front of whenever I'm in front of family. So I think that's always have been like quite the pressure for me growing up. I mean, but now I just play along with it, but it's just fine. But because I don't conform to that that Malay boy sort of like expectation, I feel like I do feel left out whenever I'm with family. So the boys will always do the very boy things, like watching coming together to watch soccer during Hari Raya, or like play carom, and those things don't really interest me. And I think I think the good side of it is that because I'm not with the boys, I always end up in the kitchen with the aunties, with my grandmother, cooking up stuff or talking about or trying to listen to interesting stories from back then when you were in the kampung. So yeah, but I mean, I feel like I'm privileged in a certain way, but I've heard, but I know a few friends who are from the trans community who also come from Malay families. People in trans community. Certain I know of some friends who are ex-Muslim who don't practice Islam anymore, and having to still live within the confines of the Malay Muslim expectation within Malay Muslim families. And I can't imagine how difficult it would be for them to go through conflicts with family, and sort of like in some cases having to hide their own identity from their families.
So maybe let's start with Taahira. Do you have anything to add from your own experiences?
This year was a real big life-changing moment in my family because my brother brought home his girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, who is not Indian Muslim, which is almost unheard of in my community. I can count with less than one hand how many people have done that. So it was really shocking to see how my parents kind of like tried to... She came very close to Ramadan, but I think the interesting thing is that I feel maybe... I can't speak for my mom who's not here yet, but I feel like because she's not Singaporean and she's from another country, they kind of gave her quite a bit of leeway to try the practices and the rituals in parts. So like she didn't fast the full fast, she fasted half the fast. And to give it to her, she's such a lovely person. She was so helpful. During each breakfast, she would cut all the fruits, she would help in the kitchen, wash the dishes. Like, I think that level of putting yourself into another person's culture, even if you have no clue. I mean, first of all, she's Korean, she's never been to Singapore, and she doesn't speak Tamil nor Arabic. So she has so much differences, but she really just did what she could, which was to help in the way she knew and how she learned back in her country. And that really, I think, soothed my parents' discomfort with her differences. So eventually she broke fast with us like once in a while, and I was amazed to see how my parents did it, because my partner is not Muslim and my parents have never invited him over. So my sister and I call it the groundbreaking year, and I think it's going to get better from here if we see it take on this route.
Thanks for sharing. Delfina, anything to add?
From my family, I think me and my sister mostly, because we're not like super religious or anything, but my grandparents are. So I think it really is also about respect. Like, sometimes, I think growing up in Indonesia, we had quite a playful like Ramadan. I think there were like times where we would go in a room and sneak snacks and things like that, but like or like hide snacks in our pockets and then go somewhere and eat. But I think as we grew older, we saw like respect why people practice it and things like that. I'm pretty sure like a lot of us as kids had all these tricks where we just like, no, why do we even fast? But I think as we grew older, we kind of understood the customs more and all that. So now it's really about respect, and I'm sure like my cousins now, not all of them are like, super religious as well. So it's really when we come together, it's just that this unspoken thing where when it's time for breaking fast, it's like, we all just do it together and respect the grandparents and the elders and things like that.
Yeah, wow. How about Noor?
A bit emotional at the moment. I think as a teenager, I was not drawn to the super rigid rules of Islam. It's like when you're growing up, it's like ingrained in you from young that sense of divine intervention and the practice of Islam to the best of my ability. So I feel like the spirituality and the overall values of our religion have resonated with me as I grew older. So I just started actually donning the hijab in 2013 after a series of life-threatening events. A lot of things happened back then. I almost lost my daughter. And my husband fell very sick. I almost lost him. And because of that, it suddenly hit me that I need to start mending my ways. However, I would not regard myself as a very staunch Muslimah. I still have imperfections, which is why I take Ramadan as a time for me to learn more about Islam every day. As you go older, I learn to be more patient and tolerant, which is the most important thing in our religion. So one of the major things in Islam too is not to judge other people. I used to have friends who belongs to the whatever above mentioned technically. So during Ramadan, they try their best to fast and pray only during Ramadan. But I don't say like, you can't do that, like, no, I'm not going to be friends with you. I don't do that. I think I accept people as who they are. There's a reason why they choose to be who they want to be, and the way they think is affected by their life experience, the childhood and all that. So I learn to understand them.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Noor. I think since Mama Z is here, I would love to hear her perspective, because Mama Z is from a different generation from us. So I think it would be great to hear your perspective on whether or not you have imposed any expectations on your children, like Taahira when she was growing up.
I did. But I think as I grew older, I realized that you cannot win them over with force. Like Noor was saying, everybody will get a calling at a point in their life. So the most important thing is that my both girls, I would not say they are like practicing what we have in Islam, but I think it's okay. They will get their calling at the time when they see it. But I show what I can and what a Muslim should do. Like as a Muslim, we do our prayers and we are kind, we are considerate, we are not judging. But sometimes it rears its ugly head. I'm sorry to say that, but I try and check myself. Since I come from that age where, like I see someone, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, okay, take a step back. Okay, I don't have to do this. Yeah. So I think basically we have to win them over with love and care. I think it goes for every religion for that matter. You cannot force it upon someone to embrace the religion they want to evangelize. So I can fully understand now.
Okay, I think we should move on to the second question, which is on the Hari Raya decorations that actually happen. So I'm sure a lot of us would know about this, but I think specifically, I would love to ask our contributors what exactly was so offensive about that incident, or what were some misconceptions that people normally have of Hari Raya. So shall we start with Hairil?
I think there's two major things that people took from this. One is that the intellectual property rights by using the person's photo without the permission. And the second one is just basically misinformed and like lazy research or lack of research. And it's like, I mean, we at the end of the day, we are human. We cannot be expected to know everything. And with that, if we don't know, we just ask. I mean, if you're not sure of something, we ask. We ask not just only 1 or 2%. You ask as many people as possible so as not to offend or like misrepresent something. I mean, right now we live in an age where we have like information literally at our fingertips. I mean, we can like simply like Google and like we ask, we research, we keep researching, and even if we are like afraid to ask or stuff like that, we can just read books, just keep ourselves informed, make ourselves informed, so as not to like offend and like misinterpret the whole thing.
Maybe let's go to Fer. I know that you were quite vocal about this issue on Instagram and how Malays have been misrepresented.
If I were to be in Sarah's shoes, right, I would be as furious. I would be angry. You cannot just take my photo and make it into like this caricature of sorts. And in a way, it's tokenism. You do not delve deep enough to actually do proper research on what kind of tie is appropriate. Also, I feel like just making blanket statement of how Malay Muslims in Singapore perceive, right? Just because it's green, just because we have, some floral patterns is Malay and that's it to it. But there's also subcategories to it. There's a lot of in-depth research that needs to be done. And we are more than just ketupat, more than just baju kurung, right? These are, I think, we are more than mere items. So like what Alfian has posted on his, I think, IG and Facebook is a very dumbed down version of like what is okay and what is not okay. And I think it's also to educate the masses, but also it also falls on us Malays, right, to actually speak up for our culture. And I'm very happy that Sarah actually did. I think for us also, and for me as well, like if let's say we look into our food that is being, in a way misconstrued, do we speak up? Do we talk about it? Do we point out? And I think people have been doing it. For example, the Nyonya Nasi Padang, which is, very wrong in my point of view. And I think someone speaked up and I think it's rightly so that the time is now for us to claim our narrative, make sure that we are presenting what is right, the truth, and what define us as Malays. We are not caricatures.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Just now you mentioned how representations of Malay in the media or Hari Raya Puasa has been reduced to things like the color green or ketupat. How do you think it could have been done better? How do you think the decorations could have been more true to the spirit of the festival? And I open this to anyone.
I think Alfian did a wonderful post about that, so I shouldn't go on anymore. But anyone else who would like to share your thoughts, please feel free as well.
Yeah, because in my opinion, from a Chinese person's perspective, like, during Chinese New Year, we also have like caricatures, if you can call it that way. I mean, we have like a lot of like pictures of ang paos and lion dance kind of motifs. But I wouldn't say that I feel offended as a Chinese. So I think we can afford to explore the nuances of what exactly makes it so offensive.
Food, festive lights, everything coming up in Geylang during Hari Raya. That's the fasting month. So they are
Ramadan.
talking about Ramadan.
Yeah.
So why do we only have to showcase one particular ethnic group? We can showcase different ethnic. We can have like, I don't know how the Chinese Muslims celebrate Ramadan. Like the Indian Muslim, I don't have ketupat. I'm sorry, I would love to make it, but I don't know how to make it. We have idiyappam, putu mayam, and we have kurma, and we have muruku, and we have, this is the staple, and wajik. This is the staple of ours, if you're doing talk about food.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the clothes, not many of us wear baju kurung. Most of us wear Punjabi suit or we wear sari.
Or we sew our own clothes.
Yeah. But now, so like we can have a diverse display of things.
Yeah.
We can have the motifs of the flowers. That is fine. The color of green is also okay. We can have different colors.
Yeah.
But I think maybe they can showcase more instead of just the kabaya and the thing on that, the ornaments for the head and all that. So I think maybe we can have more. Like we can have different,
Just to add to that, right, Mummy? I think the concern from these parties who are organizing it is maybe space, and then they're like, oh, if we show this, never show that, and then there'll be another issue about it. Okay, that's another thing. But I think more importantly, across all ethnic groups, right, it's the values, like I think we mentioned, right, the togetherness, like Delfina mentioned, like togetherness, respect for our elders. Like I think regardless of what ethnic Muslim you are, you will bend down, salam your grandparents and parents and ask them for forgiveness. And I don't see that portrayed, and that's such an integral part of Hari Raya or Eid for that matter. And I think patience, also mentioned by Noor, like I mean, these are things that may not be able to be depicted in pictures, but maybe videos or just things that suggest these values are more important than a standee. It doesn't have the same impact. So focusing on values would be better.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point, because before I started working on Singapore Noodles and on this magazine, I didn't know that Malays in Singapore actually do the forgiveness kind of ritual, because from my understanding of the festival up to that point, it was like something that's a huge celebration. So I didn't really comprehend like how poignant it can be for the Singaporean who is celebrating this festival. I feel that this is a fantastic lead into the next question, because it's kind of intertwined, right? Which is about how we can allow for more representations of the non-Malay Muslim perspective on this festival. And I think Mamazi did touch on a few things. What about Delfina? Because you have Indonesian heritage and background. What aspects do you feel from your culture should be represented?
I think in Singapore it's much more colorful and festive, where else in Indonesia it was really about gathering with the family. So I think we didn't really like new clothes and all that wasn't a big thing. So so I think the difference is like there's that focus on the values bit for me. Like I think like you say, the whole point of Hari Raya for a lot of us is that forgiveness part, and then for some people we dreaded it because we did so many wrong things, and then probably have to like face our parents and stuff. But I think for my family, the main thing is just gathering together. We don't usually see our families like every day. For some of us, so that one day is very important for us to kind of seek forgiveness, catch up with everybody, and eat. I guess it's like the main thing.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we look at the fourth question then? So this question is on the misconceptions of Malay food. So I think this is something that a lot of us might be aware of. Like Malay food is commonly depicted in the media, along with Indian food, as being really greasy, very unhealthy because of all the techniques involved, like deep frying, using a lot of oil to fry the rempah. I would love to hear if you have heard of any other misconceptions. To the audience members, you can key it in the chat box. And for our contributors, are there any of these misconceptions that you would love to debunk? So let's start with Noor.
Yeah, I keep hearing words like Malay food is oily, greasy. All we do is we like to fry our fish. That is not true. We have I think my mom makes like steamed banana wrapped in banana leaves or botol with a lot of herbs. I think that's the healthy part of my ethnicity. I mean the food that is served. Also, we don't always eat a lot of oily food or greasy food. We don't always fry our food. My mom also steam her fish, and we eat a lot of what we call sayur bening. Like it's a daily. It's like that's what she would normally cook every day lah. Like, and she'll make this. It's not asam pedas, but asam rebus. It's like a healthier, lighter version of asam pedas.
Yeah.
Everything is boiled. Yeah, and then sayur bening of her bening betik muda. Betik muda is actually young papaya with black pepper. So it's like everything is for me is like quite light lah. Light, but at the same time it's delicious. So, and there's also other food like apart from, people always talk about ayam masak merah, but I think I grew up eating daging masak merah. It's actually a Banjaris dish. It's actually called masak habang. It's really nice lah, but I think I haven't seen it so at the stalls in Singapore. So when I talk about it, people are actually quite feel a bit lost. There's also we also eat like limping kelapa, which is coconut pancake with leftover sambal. I think that's for breakfast. I mean, I grew up eating that, but my husband doesn't. I think from where he comes from, from where you come from and how your parents or your mom actually cook for you, I think the palate differs lah.
Great. I would love to find out from Firdaus, because I know that the Orang Laut cuisine is quite, there are slight differences from what the typical Singaporean Malay would cook at home. So what is your cuisine like? And would you say that it is commonly perceived to be unhealthy by the media as well?
I think the idea of just Malay cuisine as a whole, they would see it as, unhealthy, fattening, it's a lot of oil. But I also understand that, what Noor shared, there are many variations of Malay cuisine. And also what Orang Laut food is, what I'm trying to define what Orang Laut food is more towards a kind of livelihood that we once had, right? So it's a reflection of how we used to, or what we used to eat, what we used to do. And also we use a lot of seafood and vegetables that can be found on the island. I think food like gulai nanas, which is clear broth, clear prawn broth with pineapples and some protein such as, ikan kembung, ikan kuning, things like that. So something very simple, very hearty, and it is not greasy at all. It's all boiled, right? But we focus a lot on the flavors of it, which can actually be found by a paste, chili paste, garlic, onions, etc. So the misconceptions are a lot, I would say, and are also embedded in like so many years of media focus on what Malay food is, what they try to define what Malay food is, right? And also in Singapore, when you go to the nasi padang stall, it's always the usual suspects like rendang, etc. But also, I think the everyday Malay who cooks at home would look into food like senggang, for example. So laut senggang is, I would say, a little bit more healthy as compared to other foods, because we boil the fish, right? And then we focus on the flavors as well and use very simple ingredients like onions, etc. And ikan bilis base. So I think more and more of these such cuisines needs to be highlighted amongst the Malay subcategories. Also, that's what I'm trying to do as well. Give focus on Malay cuisines that are a little bit underrated. Also, at the same time, try to use food as a vehicle to share how life was like on the island itself.
Fantastic. Maybe let's hear from Hafi. So I think when we were thinking of this question, Hafi said that some Singaporeans do have misconceptions of specific dishes. So could you share more with everyone about what these misconceptions are?
The first one would be the very famous like rendang dishes. So I feel like a lot of people think that rendang is such a simple dish to make, but after me and Pam did like research for like seasonings, and we found out like how difficult it is to make like rendang. I mean, like before that, I've also seen like my grandma, making rendang, and like my brother trying to like make rendang for Hari Raya this year, and it was like so much work because it takes hours and hours stirring over, like like over the stove, and yeah, it was just like a lot of work. And I think a lot of people think like oh, you can just like get rendang from nasi padang, and why is it so expensive? Well, the auntie or like the nene just has been cooking it for like many hours, or it's meant to cost that way. So yeah, and I think a lot of food that Firdaus and Noor mentioned, I grew up like eating it like every day, like, and it's just like really comforting, like home cooked food that it's normally not really known. Because I think a lot of people just generalize Malay food as being like, oh, nasi padang or like nasi ambeng. Yeah, they say that's what they know about it, but actually if you dig a little deeper, there's a lot of like these kind of foods that we eat every day that it's like lauk sayur bayam, and like my childhood favorite, which is sotong masak hitam. So yeah, like I like to put the sotong like on my finger.
Oh, like Amelie, the film where she puts raspberries on her fingers.
Wow.
That's similar. I do that.
Okay,
oh my god.
From Taahira and Mamazi, on the Indian Muslim perspective, do you feel that there are any main differences between the food that you eat on an everyday basis versus the food that you eat on festival occasions like during Hari Raya Puasa?
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference. And we get this all the time when people come for our sessions, because they are like dying to eat misiam biryani and, like sambal goreng, and which was featured in the Seasonings magazine, which has like meat and tempeh and tofu and long beans and like a payasam, and they think that this is how we eat every day. But the truth is that, yeah, actually my family is the family that doesn't eat rice. As in, they are like so health conscious, because my father had a really serious sugar issue, so my mom made him drink like bitter gourd juice every morning for a month. And so anyway, they're very health conscious, and we actually don't eat rice unless it's Sunday, and we eat a lot of like roti based, like whole wheat flour based things, or thosai, which is rice flour. But otherwise, I think the misconception is how little vegetables non-Chinese people eat. I don't know why people have this misconception. Like they think it's all like very hearty and meat and everything, but actually there's so many vegetables that they eat, like the ones mentioned by Noor and Firdaus, and even for us, right? Not just spinach. You know what I mean? Like there are different kinds of spinach. Pasani kira, murunga kira. Like kira is the name for spinach in Tamil, but there are so many prefixes to it, and they have all their different kinds of uses, cooked with lentils, which are really eaten on a daily basis. I was forced to as a kid. So yeah, I think it's important to remember that what you see at the stall is not necessarily what people eat at home. And if you go to the wet market, you see that reflection because of the variety of green vegetables there are.
I feel that your response is like perfect segue into like the next question. But I think before we move into that, maybe we can get Hafi to play Azfar's video, because I think he has a pretty good response that resonated with me when I was working on seasonings.
So it just puts me off when when people say like, oh my god, like my family's recipe of rendang is actually the original one from like Minangkabau and all that. Well, naturally, because the Malay community, especially in Singapore and parts of Malaysia as well, is actually very plural and very diversified. Our Malay community, we're not a monolith. We come from our ancestors come from many different parts of the Nusantara region. For example, I'm of Baweanese heritage, so my ancestors come from Bawean Island in Indonesia. We have a huge Malay community who come from what is a Malay community, Malay in its general sense, who come from parts of Java, who come from parts of Borneo and Banjarmasin as well, and people who are Bugis or Punakabau. So we sort of like share, especially in Singapore, we sort of like, as much as, we're called like the Malay community, we come from various backgrounds, and that translates into the food that we put on our tables, right? So I feel like, things like, your standard Hari Raya food like rendang, sambal goreng, everything, they're very Malay dishes, and I suspect that coming to Singapore, a lot of these communities sort of like adapted into the Malay culture and started to possibly something like a sambal goreng wasn't a part of the Balinese family staple back then. But coming to Singapore, in the Malay community, people shared ideas in terms of cuisines and their own culinary heritage. Evidently, because people come from different backgrounds, there will be different versions of the same.
Oops. Yeah, I think that is basically it. But I would love to hear from Hairil, like what you think about that. Do you feel there is this expectation to cook the authentic rendang, like say for Hari Raya Puasa?
What's authentic to me and my family can be way different to, for example, Hafi's rendition of a certain dish, to Delfina's rendition of another dish. So this whole thing about chasing and attaining authenticity is that's not the right way we should approach things. I mean, we should celebrate the diversity, as I think Azfar mentioned. I mean, like my family, even if you go to different stalls in and around Singapore hawker centers, I mean, there's a stall which may serve a dish which you like, but then the same stall may serve another dish which you don't like. But then you go to another stall, it's diverse. It's sort of wrong to think that there's only one version and the solitary version of a certain dish. Because as Asaf mentioned also, is we come from a large different areas in the Southeast Asian region. So yeah, I mean, this whole authenticity thing, I don't really like the whole idea of it, and attempting to attain or just mentioning, mine is the one and the only way to do it. So I mean, that's not the right way to approach it, in my opinion.
But interestingly, when I was making ayam masak merah, right, for Singapore Noodles, I think I did a poll before that because I saw so many different variations. So I did a poll like, does your family add curry leaves or no curry leaves? Add evaporated milk or no evaporated milk? And I think what surprised me was that there was pretty much an even split. Like it was like 48% to 52%. And then someone messaged me and said, if my grandmother found out that I put curry leaves in my ayam masak merah, she would be rolling around in her grave. She would be like really upset. So what is your perspective on that? So let's hear from Delfina.
Yeah, like I agree with Hairil. Like there's nobody should gatekeep how rendang should be. And I mean, personally, I've tried so many different versions and I like them all. Like sometimes I want the more wet one and I want the dry one, and like it's all great. I also think like this whole misconception thing about Malay food being unhealthy also, I think, stems from our culture as well. Like cooking for us is like a ceremony. So when we cook, there's always this communal element to it. When we cook, it's always to cook for someone or a group, that kind of thing. So when we do that, there's a lot of like effort and love, I would say, that goes into it. So, and maybe this translates to using like rich ingredients and all that. So, and like you say, we don't eat rendang every day. we really don't eat rendang every day. So when we actually cook for people, it's always coming from a place of sharing and giving and love. which translates that, which is why the food and the cuisine is so rich. And like, if you were to ask like a normal Indonesian person what they eat every day, like I remember growing up, I used to eat rice and fried egg and kicap every day. That was my favorite dish. So I think everybody on this panel probably had that before. So yeah, so I think it's really like the background of where we're coming from, and I feel like in a way the media also did not portray this properly. Like I think what we know of Malay cuisine is always the rich food, which is what we always serve when we want to impress or we want to eat together, that sort of thing. So
I think we have a comment from Ash Ali who says that every cultural cuisine has unhealthy or healthy versions of food. And the fact that Indian or Malay cuisines get a bad rap is really unfair. So I agree with that. We always think of Chinese cuisine as very, very light and very healthy. But actually, right, I noticed that my grandmother-in-law, which is my husband's mom, she actually uses so much oil in, like, say, making glutinous rice. Or even things like making patang. There's so much oil. And traditionally, I feel that Chinese cooking has a lot of deep frying. It's just that in modern times, people have opted for like the air fryer, But in the past, every time you like braise something, you had to deep fry it first to either set its shape or to change the texture. So let's go into the next question, which is our final question for this panel, which is the notion of plant-based food, or the role that plant-based foods have in Malay cuisine and culture. So shall we hear from Noor?
I mean, if you guys heard of nasi ulam, right? I think that's one of the ways to actually incorporate a lot of raw herbs, vegetables in your food, in your diet. So like actually, because both of my parents, they're actually from a very, very old generation. My dad is born in 1925, my late dad. So so the kind of food that he eat is very, very old school. And he's also very healthy, like Tahira's mom. When he passed on, he wasn't even suffering for any ailments because he's like what I call, he is like super healthy, super fit, and every morning he actually drinks a lot of warm water. So he will actually advise me to practice that because it actually helps in your bowel system every morning. Instead of drinking coffee and tea. Yeah, and we don't have cold water. I don't drink cold water even up till now. I will still drink warm water. So it's kind of funny when people come over my house like, no, I think we're very thirsty. Do you have ice water? Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to go and make ice now. I'm so used to drinking water. So even now my husband actually adapts my kind of diet. And we actually eat a lot of ulam, a lot of herbs. I mean, and it's actually much cheaper than those European seasonal vegetables. I need to get it from them.
No, when you say you eat a lot of ulam, what kind of ulam do you mean? What kind of vegetables? Could you name us some examples?
It's the wing beans. I think my mom likes to buy a lot of wing beans, and she also what else? Those
Ulam Raja.
Yeah, ulam raja. Yeah, I think my mom likes to shop for it. That I think at Gila Market, I used to follow her. So she always have a particular herb that she has to eat every other day. It says for health reason. So a lot of this pucuk paku, pucuk ubi, that. Yeah. And she will just like blanch it and then just eat it with fries.
Urap is another dish that is circulating ulam, right?
Yeah,
I think Hairil would have something to say about that.
Traditionally, in the past, before the whole, everybody was more affluent and stuff, we were more like foragers. We had a lot of salad herbs, raw, like as mentioned, all the ulam raja, all the pucuk paku, pucuk this and that, everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think there's been a decline in the consumption and availability of such raw salad herbs and leaves, even in markets today. Because we are highly dependent on imports from overseas. So, even if I want to, I'm sort of limited to the availability of what's at the market, right? So, and furthermore, like I said, we're more affluent, we have more spending power, purchasing power, and it's like, I think the popularity of consuming ulam, all these traditional salad herbs and leaves has been waning. I mean, it's not extinct, it's there, but it's just not as popular as it once was.
Fer, maybe you would like to add maybe your impression of why these ulam or vegetables have been fading from the Malay culture and cuisine in this modern day and age.
I think I agree on some of the points that was made. Definitely because we are more affluent, we are exposed to platforms such as Grab. Everything is so convenient now. So do you want to buy something, to go to the market and create an ulam, or do you want to just get something quick? So most of us today would, get something really quick, right? But on that note, also, I feel that in Malay cuisine, this kind of normality, this kind of cuisine is not a normality now as well. Because if you go to places like Hajar Mamuna, for example, I'm not sure whether they sell ulam. I can't vouch for that. But I think at the same time, I feel that some of these food are still being consumed, but not by younger Malays. This is just my observation, but it's more of people of my parents' age. They love ulams, and also foraging was a big thing then, right? They focus a lot on foraging, especially on the island itself. They look into what they can eat as ulam, and they like the sourness to it. And these are all available to them. People who live in Singapore, in the kampongs as well, they use the forage a lot as well. And I think in Singapore, the cuisine has adapted so much, and Malay cuisine has become into these little staples like mee rebus, mee soto, etc. That's my perception of ulam.
Great, thank you. I think Azfar also has recorded something on the topic because he recently filmed something for CNA, I think.
I think I'd like to refer back to an interview that I recently did with Channel News Asia. So I was cooking a dish called opor nangka. It is a recipe passed down by my grandmother. And part of the interview was me trying to advocate that Malay dishes is actually Malay food is actually plant-based. The diet of the Malay people, the people of the Nusantara, is actually very plant-based, but traditionally, of course. And if you can notice the habits of people back then in village communities all around Southeast Asia, or even rather, even now, if you go to Indonesia and you go to third world countries around Southeast Asia, and if you can see the communities, living in the rural parts of the country, villages and all that, meat is a very expensive commodity. And a lot of the diets of these people are made up of a lot of vegetables, a lot of seafood, a lot of river fish, depending on the geographical location. So Hari Raya, traditionally Hari Raya, Adil Fitri and Hari Raya Adil Adha, used to be a few of the only times in a year where Malay people could have meat, where the kampong can, come together and then slaughter a few chickens or a cow or goat or whatever, and then enjoy the meat for a celebration, right? So there is this, so part of the interview is me just trying to challenge that narrative or that misconception that Malay food is actually heavy or unhealthy and very greasy and very meat based and all that. Of course, now when we go to a nasi campur store, around the island, they'll be selling things like ayam masak merah and rendang and things like that. It's just because that we can easily afford it nowadays, right? And those kind of dishes are obviously just very accessible, out of Hari Raya, but it was not the case. So traditionally Malay food was actually very, very much plant-based. On an everyday diet, people used to eat things like ulam, raw vegetables, a diet of fish and seafood and all that. But of course, with the growing affluence that we have, and also with capitalism, Malay peoples, they have left the life of being in the kampong, of being active in the fields and being active in their everyday work. and then now leading sedentary lifestyles. I mean, it's not just a Malay problem per se. It is a modern problem that we face. But just to dispel the myth that Malay food is unhealthy and it's very meat-based. I mean, it is true for in terms of festivals. Yes, when we're celebrating, but traditionally that was not the case.
I think we've just got a comment from someone. So Noor says, I love that Delfina brought up the idea of communal rituals and gestures. How can we foster kindred through food, through screen and virtual spaces? So, I mean, with COVID, I'm sure a lot of us have felt that Hari Raya Puasa has changed, So how can we retain its spirit? Delfina, you want to answer that question?
I think in a way we sort of like going back to how it was done last time. I think in Indonesia there was this practice where we just send each other food a lot. So no reason, no celebration or anything, just I cook extra, I'm gonna send to somebody I love or somebody I care for. So in Singapore, that's what we did the past year. I think last year especially, when we really couldn't visit. My aunt sent me a lot of food, and my mother-in-law sent me Haraya food, and then we would just meet on Zoom to eat together. So in a way we're still there and sharing the same things and talking and stuff. It was, I think, in a way it was even more chaotic than meeting in real life, because how a Zoom chat you can put in more than 10 people. So most of the time me and my husband was just laughing and eating, because the aunties would just go crazy or something like that. So it's really very much real life, where we would be in a corner of the room just observing and laughing.
Yeah.
So the same thing.
Can I also ask how the ritual can be done through Zoom, like the forgiveness ritual?
I guess that one would be more, because since it's more a private nature thing, I think what we did last year was we actually called personally to pass the phone to my grandma, because it's really between both of you. It's not something you should be doing on Zoom and shouting hey, please forgive me for doing this kind of thing. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, that's how we did it.
We have another question. I think this is for Taahira and Mama Z. So could you expand on the diversity of Indian Muslim food, and how does it vary from what you would get in India?
Subhash Kumar, you can come to our spicy kitchen for more of this. In brief, I think the main difference is that we use a lot of Southeast Asian ingredients. Definitely learned from my grandparents' Malay neighbors, like serai, lemongrass, lime beef, pandan, tofu. I tell this joke to many people, but you guys hear it now first time from me, that when my grandma's sisters came to Singapore and left back to India, they brought Clorox to clean the toilet and pandan, because they were mind blown by these two things. So yeah, pandan is something they didn't use in their cooking, so this is something we use a lot. And tofu as well, tempeh, all that, those are not things you eat in India. So I would say that the curry that we cook, Indian Muslim food in Singapore, is localized by what we learned from,
and also by the environment.
And also by the environment, like the use of noodles, right? Oh my, that was definitely something we learned from either Chinese or Malay people, not just yellow noodle, but because mee siam biryani is not a rice dish, it's made with bihun, right? Vermicelli noodles. So this is something that we learned from the people who were living around us and what was available. So
pal mee siam, it's another version of the nasi lemak.
I mean, a variation. So pal mee siam is vermicelli noodles cooked with coconut milk, but then there is mustard seeds and curry leaf and shallots and serai in it. So it's not the same as nasi lemak, but the idea of taking sambal and putting it with coconut noodles is there. So this is basically the adaptation that we have. And yeah, you're welcome to come visit us after 21st or something. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's 12 p.m. in Singapore right now, and I feel that, we've got a pretty good discussion. So I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this. Thanks for asking great questions as well. And thanks to our contributors, Hairil, Delfina, Noor, Firdaus, Taahira and Mama Z for joining us today, and Azfar as well, who took the time to film his responses. So our next issue is actually going to be on Hungry Ghost Festival. And so we officially wrapped up the first issue of Seasonings. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.